When we see violence in very mainstream movies like the Marvel movies or the Kung Fu movies and karate movies, the violence is very unreal and glamorous. That for me perpetuates more violence. When the violence is brutal and gruesome, it puts you off. They are U certificate movies and shown to children, and they pick up fights. I'm saying we need to start looking at violence from a new prism. Now I am politically more aware and I have a political opinion and I am a political person. But the thing is, now I need people to keep me in check sometimes. And there are people around me who will keep me in check. When I was doing Black Friday, I was very neutral. I was not trying to thrust my point of view. I was objective. I took a step back and do that. At that time, my political understanding was also much lesser and I was much naive and innocent. I've suffered this for the longest time, and exhibitors are aware of it. They're trying to make a change. They are reaching out to us saying that no, we have been unfair and we'll do that. But my thing is, one has to see that in practice. I had a very successful run of Wasipur 3 for 9 days, interrupted by Ek Tha Tiger and thrown completely out of theatre. So you have one big film coming and occupying 4 screens, and the all other films are struggling to find one show each on one single screen. I'm saying when this kind of a inequality happens, then theatre owners actually have no right to complain. Gulabo Sitabo or a Akshay Kumar film is going to come on OTT, but they did not have a problem with the Bumfar coming on OTT or my film coming on OTT because they want the big films, big ticket films. So the fight is not really about cinema; it's about money.
Welcome to Speakeasy, Anurag. It's absolutely wonderful chatting with you. It's been a while. And
Yes, it's been a long time.
It's kind of a double whammy for you because you've announced the launch of your new production house, Good Bad Films, and
Yes.
we also have a new release.
Yeah, this is our first production, Choked. And yeah, it's like just crossing our fingers and looking forward to starting yet again. I don't know, this must be my umpteenth start. So let's see
Well,
how it goes.
Anurag, now that you've launched your new production house and like you say, it's a new start, how do you look back at the lows and the highs and everything?
I think everything is a learning. I look at everything as a learning. I believe that the way things happen, they happen for a certain reason, and you constantly learn. And I'm back in a space where I feel like I know exactly things I don't want to do and want to do. I have no ambitions of having a grand studio. I have no, because the ambitions kind of always take you in directions that take away something from you. In the sense, the way earlier I would support a lot of independent movies and things, when starts becoming larger and bigger studio, you stop being independent. Every film you start seeking stars, every film you start seeking big names. You stop supporting that indie films, the things that you believed in initially. And I've seen a lot of movies that we really wanted to do, not ending up doing, and other people doing the very same film, and you envy them. And today, I know it's very easy for me to be me, that I can lend myself to films I really like and love, whether it's an Amis or Ib Leu and things, and without any kind of a transactions, be supportive of the film, because I'm not being answerable to anyone who's saying that why you're doing this, and everything becomes always about money, and it stops being about your love for it, and which is how I used to be, and which is where I'm back, and I'm very happy. I'm actually in a very, very good space that way.
You were among the first few people to also take a very strong stand against sexual harassment. Now you have a full new production house. How fiercely are you going to protect, and how are you making sure
Because
that, because you've
we
learned,
have,
right? You've learned it.
yeah, they're very simple things. Like, in the sense, I know what are my strengths and my weaknesses, and I know what I'm not going to do. Because with every film, with every project, individually, we are going to hire people who do line production, people who do things, and people will be hired on project basis. The company will essentially remain three people who have three different strengths: one who does the contract, one who handles finances, and I handle the creatives, and that's it. So every time when we start a film, we hire people for the film per se, and that's it. And I'm going to limit things to that, not doing too many productions, focus on things and do them really well, concentrate on quality, and invest a lot, as much as possible, in new talent, that I used to do earlier, and newer ideas, and I'm much more, fearless at this moment now, because my actions or my choices do not impact the existence or the financial model of a company, because it's not about doing
Oh.
50,000 different things where you can't really keep a check on things.
Anurag, I obviously watched Joke and I found it very, very interesting. Wonderfully written. It's not your style. It's different. It felt very fresh.
It
Um,
came from Nihit
I know
Bhave,
that.
that's why probably.
Yes, it has. I know that the idea of demonetization was not Nihit's initially, and you wanted that to be a part of it. Now, there's two. There's one more part to this question. The question being that when your political views are that clear, and when you're taking up a subject like demonetization, where people are obviously expecting you to have looking at that subject from your political view, how do you balance that out, and how did you, you know, did that question come up? How were you thinking about that bit?
No, it's not like I don't know how to balance things in the sense I have my I have my writer, I have my actors, I have my people who I give enough credit to and strength to that they can question me. So whenever there was a temptation or an intention that the character starts talking about politics, which is my politics, the first thing Nate will say is, "Why is Sarita sounding like Anurag? Sarita is not Anurag." And that was valid, and Sayami would say the same thing. And when you play it out, you realize it when it's happening in front of your eyes. And if you're really honest, you will see that you're forcing a character and you're forcing an ideology on a character. You're not being honest or true to the story you're telling, on the story of the people that you're telling. It's the same thing in the sense, like, we have always stayed neutral. Even when I was doing Black Friday, I was very neutral. I was not trying to thrust my point of view. I was objective. I took a step back and do that. At that time, my political understanding was also much lesser, and I was much naive and innocent. Like, it allowed me to take a step back and look at it objectively and be honest and truthful. Now I am politically more aware, and I have a political opinion, and I am a political person. But the thing is, now I need people to keep me in check sometimes. And there are people around me who will keep me in check, because essentially it never let me forget that this film is about Sarita and Sushant and their marriage, and about her own struggle with her aspirations, with her trauma, with her everything. And this film is not essentially a film about demonetization. Demonetization is a very important spine to it around which the film is built.
She's not idealistic, and she's not your plain Jane character. You make your female characters more interesting, whether it's Tapsi's character in Man Marzia, and things like that. Now here, the interesting point also is the way you show the husband's interaction with her, because while she takes in charge and earns the money in the house, the husband becomes more insecure, which is a balance that a lot of people would probably, not, which is not often shown. I think that dynamic also was very interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that, Anurag.
See, one thing is, the very first thing that attracted me to Nate's script was the flawed characters. I like flawed characters. I don't like very. I've always hated the girl next door in Hindi cinema. I hate it. Hello, I abhor the idea of a girl next door. People who are like, their job is to just look prim and perfect and beautiful, and are supposed to behave in a certain way which is approved by everybody from top to bottom. I just, if in person also, if I meet somebody like that, I'll run away. I like flawed people. People have their flaws, and they have their insecurities, and they have their things, and they have their strengths. And the reason I like Sarita so much is Sarita is every woman. Sarita is every woman. She has her own struggle. She's she's a woman who has sacrificed her dream out of an expectation. She thinks she has let down her husband and herself. She's carrying that guilt, that trauma of having choked. That trauma still doesn't leave her. She dreams of it every night. She's insomniac. She is a workaholic. She, when she finds money, she's grateful because she thinks it's a miracle happening openly to her. So she's grateful to God because she believes in that God does those miracles to her. She is also starts to become greedy. She becomes protective. She becomes secretive. It also gives her. She suddenly finds enough strength to lock the bathroom door. The way she pulls that old lady who's sleeping on the mattress because she feels invasion of privacy, whole lot of things that she goes through. She's an every woman, and that's why she's so interesting and so attractive, and I want to know her story, why she's the way she is. And she's never talked about what haunts her till right in the end when she loses everything and she cries. And you understand her, then her whole life has been about, like, why do I always lose? And that somehow brings out the good side of Sushant as well. And they find each other after that. And that's something they didn't do for 10 years. They probably did not had this conversation where they showed their vulnerabilities to each other. They just kept blaming each other. They kept accusing each other, which is what happens in every household. Which is what happens in every household. The kid starts to become an adult too soon. So that's what attracted me to the script. And I just wanted Sarita to be like that. I say, you can't be just this perfect person. And she's not this perfect person. And that is what is so incredibly beautiful about her.
And secondly, Anurag, and I will go to sexual violence particularly. Of course, there's
Mm.
a series, Patal Lok happened, but there an entire discussion also has arisen as to that how much of sexual violence is okay without retribution. The makers try to justify sexual violence by saying that it was necessary to, and we're depicting reality, but without retribution, it also can become problematic. It can trigger when people are watching it where they would want to, and other things, and which make it more problematic. What is your take on that, Anurag? And as a filmmaker today, after so many years, taking into account the kind of the atrocities in the country that happened, especially with women, why do you think that is also important to kind of highlight?
See, I have a very different perspective on violence. And I'm kind of, I have a certain obsession with the idea of it that I've tried to explore it right from my first film onwards. Most of my films I've kept violence off screen, like whether it's Raman Raghav or Panch or everything. And one film where I decided I'll keep violence on screen and I will not take eyes off from it. I will not cut away from it. So there are no cuts, single take violence scenes, which was Gangs of Wasseypur. The
Correct.
my idea of exploring violence is because I've seen that, when we see violence in very mainstream movies like the Marvel movies or the Kung Fu movies and karate movies, the violence is very unreal and glamorous. That for me perpetuates more violence. When the violence is brutal and gruesome, it puts you off. You can't watch it. It makes you so uncomfortable. And whenever violence makes you uncomfortable, it really puts you off violence. When violence is gratifying, like somebody jumping out the street and fighting 20 villains, that excites people to go out and get into a fight. That makes people fantasize. That's something that I have been constantly toying with watching movies. And what happens in the real world is whenever violence makes uncomfortable, people start questioning it. And when the violence is not uncomfortable, they are U certificate movies and shown to children, and they pick up fights. I'm saying we need to start looking at violence from a new prism. The violence
Correct.
needs to be done in a way where it really puts you off, and it can only happen when people who are filming violence are against violence. Like, I make very dark movies and I'm often accused of making dark movies. I can't stand the sight of blood. I see real blood and I paint. I'm saying that's why my relationship with violence is like this. And I'm very anti any kind of a violence. And that's why I am obsessed with it, because I want to study and explore the nature of it.
Anurag, just in this question, I just want to know about specificity of sexual violence. Though sexual violence for a longer period in film without retribution is also what I want to know from you.
See, there's a movie called Nightingale. You should see that movie called Nightingale. It has the most brutal sexual violence scene that I have seen in recent times. And it is so brutal that it not just puts you off it, you actually as an audience feel assaulted and you feel it. And it haunts you. So for me, I sometimes feel like it depends the intention behind shooting that. If somebody is doing something like that with an intention to titillate or intention to excite, one can clearly see through it. And I think it's absolutely wrong. But sometimes people go to that brutal distance. Like, we can't watch gore. Why can't we watch gore? We eat animals, we eat meat, but we can't watch gore. I'm saying there are people who will eat a chicken, but they can't see a chicken being cut. They'll eat meat, but they can't see a fish being kind of scooped out. They can't do that. A lot of people go through that kind of a thing. It's a very contradictory thing. Sometimes, even in terms of sexual violence or whatever that's depicted, it entirely depends on how one is shooting it and what is the intention behind it. And maybe sometimes people should discuss it, and it has to be done in a way where the desired impact is created. If not, then you don't need it. Because for me, a stronger violence is created when you don't see it, because the human mind is capable of imagining the worst. So when you keep it off screen, the human mind is capable of imagining the worst, and they will imagine the worst, and one can recreate that kind of an impact only sometimes with just sound.
I'll wrap the interview by this last question. We are right now, your film is an OTT original, right? It's that, but
Yeah.
the with Gulabo Sitabo and other films now directly releasing on OTT, there is this furore that came from exhibitors, and obviously now they're trying to have a debate around it because they think, why are you not waiting for theatrical release? I want to understand, Anurag, for someone who's never let platform define your work, what do you think of both?
Mine's very simple thing. That is a discussion that will go on. OTT and cinema is going to coexist. People are fighting because Gulabo Sitabo or a Akshay Kumar film is going to come on OTT, but they did not have a problem with the Bumfar coming on OTT or my film coming on OTT, because they want the big films, big ticket films. So the fight is not really about cinema; it's about money, and it's about the business. But eventually, when the lockdown will lift and theaters will open, there'll be such a bottleneck of big releases coming out. Now imagine if, suppose, I keep my film away, and my film was not a Netflix original. It was supposed to come out in cinemas, and my film is ready. But I'm saying, when there's a Suryavanshi and 1983 and some other big films, nobody's gonna give me space. I've suffered this for the longest time, and exhibitors are aware of it. They're trying to make a change. They are reaching out to us saying that no, we have been unfair and we'll do that. But my thing is, one has to see that in practice. I had a very successful run of Wasipur 3 for 9 days, interrupted by Ek Tha Tiger and thrown completely out of theater. So you have one big film coming and occupying 4 screens, and the all other films are struggling to find one show each on one single screen. I'm saying, when this kind of a inequality happens, then theater owners actually have no right to complain. I'm saying they should complain when they've been fair to everything. So their complaint is about Gulabo Sitabo. Their complaint is not about Bumper. Their complaint is not about my film. This complaint is not going to be about another next small film.
All the very best. And
Thank you so
I
much,
really
Rudrani.
enjoyed Choke.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, Anurag. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Watch E-Town News Monday to Friday at 9:30 p.m. only on Zoom.